accompanied by Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg.
Please sit down, sit down. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Council on Supply Chain Resilience, and I want to begin by thanking you, President Biden, for your leadership on these two issues that matter so much to every American: fixing supply chains and lowering everyday costs. As we prepare for the future in this body, it is important to reflect on how much has changed in a short amount of time. When President Biden first took office, the pandemic had led to the most profound and widespread set of disruptions to our transportation systems since 9/11, including enormous strain on our supply chains. We were paying more, we were waiting longer. We had about 100 ships bearing down on those West Coast ports, and some in the media, just about exactly 2 years ago, were saying that Christmas was going to be canceled. Christmas, of course, was not canceled. All through the year, President Biden had been challenging us to stay ahead of this issue and to be prepared to respond. And so, as tough as that season was, we wound up having an all-time record high of goods moving through America's ports, and people received their packages from major shippers with about a 99% on-time rate. That happened, of course, because President Biden brought together players from across different parts of the supply chain to address the biggest disruptions. Under his leadership, we built temporary inland container yards in places like Savannah and Oakland. We partnered with ports like Los Angeles and Long Beach to get containers moving more quickly. And most importantly, of course, supply chain workers stepped up. So thank you to the longshoremen, warehouse workers, rail workers, truck drivers, and everyone else who is a part of that. And now, as economists are assessing some of the reasons why inflation today is down so significantly compared to 1 year ago, many of them are pointing to the work that was done to reduce shipping costs and other supply chain inefficiencies. But there is more to do. Our goal is not to get American supply chains back simply to where they were before the pandemic, when they were fine on a good day, but brittle in the face of disruptions. Our goal is to make our supply chains more durably resilient and to bring more of their elements home to American soil to prevent disruptions and price spikes in the future. And that is why President Biden has created this White House Council on Supply Chain Resilience to institutionalize what we've done well and to focus on what remains to be done. From a transportation perspective, I want to briefly highlight 3 initiatives. First, through the President's infrastructure package, we are making unprecedented investments in America's supply chain infrastructure. We're helping expand capacity and resiliency at places like the Port of Miami, speeding the movement of goods with a new bridge being built at the Port of Los Angeles, adding 1,000 feet of wharf space and new rail cranes to the Port of Houston, and improving safety and goods movement at literally hundreds of ports, highways, and freight rail lines in between. And this is now being coordinated by our new multimodal freight office, also a creation of the bipartisan infrastructure law, so that our investments can have the biggest impact to move goods reliably and keep shipping prices down. Secondly, we consistently heard from private sector partners that to make the most of our physical infrastructure, we were going to need better data infrastructure. For example, an importer reported not being able to tell the fastest way to move goods. A port was losing visibility of goods outside of their gates, and a logistics firm didn't have enough notice to get their chassis to the right location where locomotives were available, all of which added up to wasted time and higher costs. So we launched FLOW, the Freight Logistics Optimization Works initiative, to give actors across the supply chain unprecedented access to shared data. And today, even though this effort is still new, we can share some great progress. We've grown the number of participants to now include the 5 largest U.S. container ports, 7 of the largest ocean carriers, and some of the largest retailers, including Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Lowe's. And participants are now beginning to use the data for the first time to inform decision-making that avoids bottlenecks, improves lead time, and better coordinates where trucks and chassis are most needed so that they can move goods more efficiently and, again, keep shipping costs down. And third, we are advancing the President's Trucking Action Plan, building new truck parking, improving working conditions for truck drivers, and opening new pathways for veterans to enter this critically important career. So while there is certainly much more work ahead of us, there is also a great deal of progress to build on. Thank you again, and it is now my great honor to introduce the person who has led this work with discipline, with expertise, and with a constant focus on how we can use the tools of government to help people in everyday life, the President of the United States, Joe Biden.